Okay, so as you know, I have returned once again to do the movie reviews. My name is Bullet6 Cougar, and today we're going to do a review on one of the worst horror movies next to The Darkness, House of the Dead, and Alone in the Dark. Yup, it's called Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey, and why this movie ruins the Alan Alexander Milne's books. Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey is a 2023 British independent slasher film written, directed, and produced by Rhys Frake Waterfield, in his directorial debut. The film serves as a horror retelling of A. Milne and E. H. Shepard's Winnie-the-Pooh books and stars Craig David Doust as Winnie-the-Pooh and Chris Cordell as Piglet. It follows Pooh and Piglet, who have now become feral and bloodthirsty killers and embark on a murderous rampage, terrorizing a group of young university women and an adult Christopher Robin when he returns to the 100-acre wood 5 years later after leaving for college. The film was first announced on May 24, 2022, where it drew widespread attention due to its premise involving a character that garnered a reputation as a beloved childhood icon and was met with divided reactions. It went into development after the 1926 Winnie-the-Pooh book entered the public domain in the United States on January 1, 2022. A 10-day period of shooting for the film took place in the Ashdown Forest of East Sussex, England, that serves as inspiration for the 100-acre wood, the setting for the stories. Originally set for an Eshenwood one-night event before screening was then expanded to a major worldwide theatrical release because of its popularity. Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey premiered in Mexico on January 26, 2023, and was theatrically released in the United States on February 15, 2023. Its theatrical release in the United Kingdom is set on March 10, 2023. The plot follows as 5 women are stalked by an unknown being who has ties with Christopher Robin after he has left Pooh and his friends for college. That's basically it. 10 reasons will be given why we intentionally won't be friends forever with this film, and before I start, to anyone who likes this movie, then that's going to be your problem. Because this movie contains strong violence, gory images, and threat that will ruin your childhood, so you have been warned. 1. Much like the Banana Splits movie, addressing the yellow bear in the forest, the idea of a Winnie-the-Pooh horror film was an abysmal one. This is another problem for the mean one, Bambi, The Reckoning, and Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, the latter two of which are set to be made by the same director, but more on him a little later. For starters, Winnie-the-Pooh was established to be a family-friendly childhood icon who is friendly but dim-witted, but not here. Here he's a murderous bloodthirsty beast out for blood. Even Jim Cummings, one of the voice actors of Winnie-the-Pooh from the Disney franchise of Winnie-the-Pooh, didn't like this film, as in an interview, he described it as disgusting, and it shows. To get matters worse, it has been confirmed that 2 more films will be turned into a horror movie, which are Peter Pan and Bambi. And we are coming to the bottom of the iceberg here. This movie is getting a sequel. Additionally, the characters of Rabbit, Eeyore, Owl, Kenga, Tigger, and Raya don't show up here. Owl, Eeyore, and Rabbit are only mentioned in the opening while Kenga, Raya, and Tigger are let out. The reasoning for this above was that since the first Winnie-the-Pooh book entered the public domain in 2022, it became a free-for-all which allowed director Rhys Frake Waterfield to develop this film. Tigger had not yet entered the public domain until 2024. Adding on to that, there was already a more mature take on Winnie-the-Pooh called Christopher Robin, 2018, but the film still kept in the family-friendly element. Both films had a grown-up Christopher Robin, but the 2018 film had a scene of Christopher's father dying, to which it's shown as a funeral, and a scene where Christopher is a young adult as he serves in World War II. Despite the lack of soldiers dying, anyone could still tell that the film wanted to be serious. Even the Uncle Al U2 parody of Winnie-the-Pooh, Pooh's Jim, managed to capture the same charm while also adding in a bunch of raunchy humor that is more effective. 2. The film's micro-budget of less than $100,000 really shows here. While tolerable for a low-budget film, the special effects still look cheap. The filming also took 10 days, a very short time for a film of this scale. In fact, this film is like a Dare Man film that is rushed out for a holiday release. Pooh and Piglet don't even look like a bear or pig respectively and instead look more like men wearing Pooh and Piglet masks. In fact, they look more like Michael Myers if he gave birth to fraternal twins. On the topic of Piglet, he looks more like a boar than a pig. 3. None of the characters, aside from Christopher Robin, are worth reading as they are so forgettable that viewers would forget their names after the credits roll. 4. Bizarre soundtrack that at times feels like it is better suited for an action comedy, not a horror film. It's clear that the filmmakers either use songs from public domain or composed by someone who doesn't know how to do horror films well. 5. Speaking of horror, aside from the opening scene, it relies on jump scares that can clearly be telegraphed. 6. Terrible acting that makes it feel that the filmmakers took random people on the street and had them in the movie. In fact, Nikolai Leon as Christopher Robin is the only one who seems to be trying here. Unlike David Howard Thornton, who at least tried his best as the Grinch from the Mean One despite the low budget, Craig David Doust and Chris Cordell do not give good performances as Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet and act more like bland versions have Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees without their respective charms. 7. Along with that, characters make stupid decisions, like bringing a gun to fight Pooh and Piglet with only one bullet. They don't bring more rounds from a revolver that they could reload for 6 shots, only 1. 8. Aside from its premise, there's nothing interesting about this film. All audiences can hear about the film is 5 friends going to a cabin for vacation while being stalked by a killer and they can correctly guess the plot. Speaking of which, much like the Mean One, the plot itself is nothing special. It is just another run-of-the-mill slasher horror plot, only adding in Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet because the book went into the public domain. You can replace Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet with random serial killers and nothing will change. 9. The ending is abrupt. Christopher Robin flees just as Pooh kills the last girl and the film ends there. In fact, at the credits, there's a teaser in MCU style in which Winnie-the-Pooh will return, and considering the film's tiny budget and massive attention thanks to its premise, a follow-up will definitely happen. And lastly, 10. The amount of negative criticism it got on release pretty much shows that Frank Waterfield only made this film for attention and didn't care for the criticism it got. He even said in an interview that he wanted to ruin everyone's childhood. But 4 redeeming qualities will be given. 1. This film can give you a good laugh if you like so bad it's good movies. 2. The opening scene is surprisingly great. The opening animation looks well made for a low-budget film and is admittedly terrifying in several shots. 3. As mentioned before, Nikolai Leon tries his best as Christopher Robin. And lastly, 4. As mentioned above, a part of why we intentionally won't be friends forever with this film. Number 2. The special effects, despite being cheap, and why we intentionally won't be friends forever with this film. Number 2. Are tolerable. Some of the special effects look pretty great, like the honey on Pooh. It's certainly much better than some bigger budget movies like Marvel nowadays. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 5% of 37 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of .0010. The website's consensus reads, "Oh bother." Metacritic assigned the film a weighted average score of 16 out of 100, based on 11 critics, indicating overwhelming dislike. Christian Zilko of IndieWire scored the film a grade C, criticizing the film's screenplay as an incoherent mess as well as the film's low production values. Awarding the film a similar score, Luke Thompson of the AV Club offered similar criticism towards the cheap production values and lack of a coherent story, while also noting that the film fulfills its promise of a slasher film based on a beloved children's book. Polygon Tasha Robinson felt that certain elements such as the gore and inherent grotesqueness of the material worked well, but added that the film's poor dialogue, lack of humor, and connection to its basic source material ruined an interesting premise. Dennis Harvey of Variety was highly critical of the film for its lack of humor, poor acting, and incoherent screenplay, summarizing that the film failed to meet even the most basic expectations set up by its conceptual gimmick. In his review for Roomwork, Michael Gingold felt that the film lacked any sort of wit or imagination to successfully implement upon its premise. Gingold additionally pointed out the drab cinematography, absence of characterization for its title villain, and messy production only served to make the film easily forgettable. Rating the film 1.5 out of 4 stars, Nick Allen from Regbert.com wrote that it fails as both a comedy and a horror film, noting the poorly lived scenes in the film made it hard to decipher what was happening on screen, while echoing other critics' sentiments on the writing and lack of interesting characters. The film was made because Winnie-the-Pooh entered the public domain in 2022. Also, I'm not very happy to tell you about this. Despite being panned by critics for its low budget and production values, as well as a lack of a coherent story and creativity, it has been commercially successful, grossing over $4 million worldwide against its small budget. Hold on a second, Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey was a commercial success. Did Reese Frank Waterfield did this to us?